Faraaz recreates the upscale cafe with its clean and detailed cinematography, providing a glimpse into the terrifying night when the catastrophe took place. ISIS terrorists are shown preparing for their mission in the movie's opening scene, led by a man by the name of Rajiv. In the opening minutes of the film, we see the terrorists psyching themselves up for their mission while another one takes an excessively smug look at himself in the mirror. Mehta makes sure to clearly show the motivations and objectives of these young men despite not providing a traditional history, and the entire incident is filmed in one jarring take. Rajiv appears to be the person most likely to have brainwashed these 5 men, yet the way they speak and act only serves to highlight how thoroughly ingrained in contemporary culture the rest of them are. All 5 of these people came from middle-class families with reasonable levels of education, and they were all raised with the same values the nation was founded on, as we will soon discover. And yet, here they were with their perverted understanding of religion, wherein intolerance and violence were disguised as acts of devotion. They casually assassinate the lead guard outside the cafe as soon as they arrive at their intended location. Kill everyone except Muslims from Bangladesh, according to the unambiguous orders. What's the primary motivation behind this? Kill every non-Muslim in an effort to defend Islam and raise awareness to the problem among the international community. Their unethical strategy is the same. They use violence to make a point because they believe it will earn them a place in heaven. As we see the terrorists prepare to wreak havoc, Faraaz, Zahan Kapoor, and his family are shown relaxing in his opulent home. The titular Faraaz, Bangladesh Ka Shehzada, is born into a wealthy family in a nation that deals with inequality just like any other. In a movie about stirring a sense of global awareness, he seems to be putting his heart on display. His mother's, Juhi Babur, apparent distress and annoyance at being unable to make it to Malaysia as planned is palpable. She reportedly wanted her kid to attend Stanford for his advanced education, but he seems determined about staying in his native country. The argument finishes on a harsh note, and as listeners, we can tell that even though each party is correct on their own terms, they both want to avoid hurting the other. Faraaz, who is now angry, leaves the house to go out with 2 of his friends, Tarika, an Indian Muslim, and another Muslim female from his area. They got together at Holy Artisan Bakery. We quickly discover that 3 of the 5 attackers really attended elite national schools, while the other 2 were madrasa students. As was mentioned previously, despite having a good education, these young guys were deluded enough to align their bright minds with a damaging lie. Jihadi organizations targeted them and focused their fledgling campaign against the world at them, as is frequently the case with Islamic terrorism. They constantly smoke, allowing their hypocrisy to stand out despite their pride in the Islamic way of life. Their entire motivation in life seems to be the promises of achieving the ultimate martyrdom after creating and maintaining an Islamic state. In reality, one of the other hate-filled fanatics, Nibraz, Aditya Raval, brutally murders one of the 5 gunmen when he hesitates to sacrifice himself after proving the point. Because Nibraz used to be Faraaz's football buddy, as we hear about previously, he appears to be relatively forgiving toward him. But, the latter's steadfastness in defending his 2 buddies causes him to steadily find himself into deeper problems, enraging the other 4 extremists. Thus, the movie raises an important point of debate: why did one of the 2 become a merciless killer while elevating his country and its ideals above all else? Was it the privilege of the former, coming from a higher social class, or was it the latter's desire to support a radical cause? The terrorists used the grossly oversimplified and inappropriate scenario of opposing Western nations and how they have undermined Islam in front of the entire crowd to justify their mindless acts of terrorism. The argument between Nibraz and Faraaz in the film serves to further highlight the contrast between the 2 ideas, which unfortunately soon turns into a Twitter battle of sorts, devoid of any deeper exploration. According to Nibraz, anyone who does not adhere to the same religion as he does is an infidel who deserves to perish. But Faraaz continually defended his perfectly rational and well-informed opinions against him. He also claims that Allah had wanted everyone to doubt, dispute, and question in times of necessity at one point, using the Arabic word for reasoning, ijtihad, from the Quran to support his argument against Nibraz. Regrettably, it is far too late for Nibraz and his other collaborator to understand how, like other religious texts, the Quran promotes harmony and peace. Also, Faraaz gives us a tense perspective on how the authorities weren't passive during the duration of the night. Many cops end up dying from defective equipment from the top after first encircling the cafe and falling to the ground as a result of the firing. The final DMP sub-inspector who has served time for a crime contacts the commissioner and stands his ground. He enforces the regulations even when Faraaz's mother tries to utilize her connections to enter the cafe. Even SWAT and RAB are eventually called in, but the police are instructed by the polarizing prime minister of the time to first negotiate with the attackers. The cops become aware of how many lives have already been lost, all of which could have been prevented, as morning breaks. Yet, after watching the news, the terrorists understand they have made their point. They finally decide to release the hostages after being praised for their actions by their leader. Everyone leaves the scene of mayhem, but Faraaz and his companions are absent. They are where? The only person within the cafe who continually stood his own verbally was Faraaz. Nibras saw one of Faraaz's friend's Hindu bracelet as they left, and those who were confirmed to be local Muslims by the IDs were asked to leave. He stops the other female as well because she had earlier in the movie passionately opposed one of the militants, but he lets Faraaz go. But, as we've come to realize, Faraaz is someone who promotes harmony and peace. This enrages Nibras, who then causes the final deaths from the sad incident. Faraaz is the one who actually gives his life for religious principles before the other 5 men give up their own lives to the authorities on the pretense of making a sacrifice. The disparity between what a human sacrifice can be justified as, and what it can be reduced to, serves as the movie's thematic fulcrum. The only recipient of the Mother Teresa Memorial International Award posthumously was Faraaz Ayaz Hussain, who was the grandson of Latifa Rahman, chairman of Transcom Group. When accepting the award at the end of the movie, his mother is heard saying that she doesn't really lament her son's passing. Instead, because she didn't witness him leave the cafe that day, she already knew the tragic outcome he would have faced. The last words of the film transcend boundaries, making the audience contemplate deeper about the larger role we have to play in preserving humanity. How it's important to push back against voices of hate and division, as that's the only antidote to the toxin of indifference. Do you enjoy the video? Subscribe, like and share for more.